Paramania Radio.
Hey guys, I got the perfect song for the show. What do you think about this?
What the hell is this?
Dude, this is not the boring psychic.
Oh, okay. How about this instead?
Take out the papers and the trash. This isn't it. Or you don't get no spending cash.
No. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah!
The party is live every Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, with a twist of metal. Melissa Bruce is the heavy metal psychic.
Only on Paramania Radio. Be there.
Tune in to the Chris and Wayne Show every Thursday night at 8 o'clock on ParamaniaRadio.com. Hop aboard the Haunted Ship of Doom and join Captain Chris.
It was the government secretly outside of the studio.
Skipper Wayne.
I think it's time you get the Kraken out of your butt.
Deck Wench Joe.
Yeah, I got stuck on the corner.
And, of course, Cabin Boy Todd.
Oh, look where I'm sitting.
And always remember our motto. Don't just listen to the mayhem. Be a part of it.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Paramania, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
You are listening to Paramania Radio.
You're listening to the Parasearch UK Radio Show with your hosts Kerry Greenaway and Jay Lynch, right here on Paramania Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Parasearch UK Radio Show. I am the sidekick with my lovely host, Miss Kerry Greenaway, across the other side of the pond. How are you tonight, love?
I'm really well, thank you. And how are you?
I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. It's been one of those days.
Fun.
Oh, it's been one of those days, and in between working 11 and a half hours, coming home and getting ready for the show, I had to take in the washing machine. Our clothes washer broke, and I had to put a new one in, and da-da-da-da-da. And now I'm sitting here with about 10 milligrams of Flex Real in me, and a cold beer beside me. We'll see how this goes.
Oh, okay. Let's see how it goes. Oh! Oh!
Hello.
Mr. Mercer, are you joining us now?
Yes.
Hello,
and
Andy.
Skype need to be fired. They are a ridiculous company who design software so badly that they need to be shot. The lot of them. Everyone at Skype, you are ridiculous. That's what I have to say on the matter.
How do you feel about it?
It's going well so far.
No, it was all set up perfectly fine, Skype before, and then the Skype updates itself and resets all the settings, so it's all lost. Oh, hello.
And breathe.
So nice of you to join us. And I hear you guys are really getting things moving over there on that side of the pond with Parasearch. Looking forward to some great things coming out of there.
Yeah, there's been a little change of with Parasearch, but it's all good. We're
change is great.
Good. It changes good, and it's moving forwards, and we're staying the same. There's nothing, no major. You won't see any major changes.
No.
Isn't that right, Andy?
Oh, absolutely. Nothing is changing. We're getting rid of these American people we used to have on board, but other than that, everything's fine. Sorry, Jay. Sorry.
Oh, we haven't told him yet. Oh,
dear.
It is such a wonderful network, what you guys have all been doing over there. And me and Teresa have been so privileged to be a part of it. We do thank you guys. And it's been nice knowing you, and I'll leave you the prick alone then. Go back to my beer.
You are going nowhere.
It's me who's going somewhere. This is when he tells me that I'm fired.
Yeah. You're going somewhere. You're coming across this side of the pond, so way we can go investigate together.
Well, the three of us are a military junta together, so we can't fire each other. We need each other. We exist together. One of us is the Army, one's the Air Force, and one's the Navy. And you can work out which is which, but we need each other. So the three of us are staying, and no one can fire either one of us. So.
It's very true.
I know who to suck up now.
We just have to do some mud wrestling if we ever have issues. That's all. We've taken it to mud wrestling.
Well, as Paul's not with us at the moment, Paul can be the Navy.
Yeah.
Now, kind of interesting. Why I kind of brought it in this way is because the basis of tonight's show is about different styles between the U.S. and the U.K. in investigating. And I don't know exactly how this could go, folks. I really don't. I know that it will go very educated and very openly because the people that we have here together with Andy and Kerry and then also me and David over here on this side, that there's going to be no animosities. You can bet on that. There might get heated discussion, but there will be no animosities. So if you guys are looking for a big throwdown, sorry, you're going to go watch Celebrity Death Match. You can't see it here.
It will not be happening here.
So
definitely not.
No, that's my biggest thing. I see the difference is how open you guys are there for the metaphysical side. It's changing over here. Well, no, it isn't. It's changing in certain areas, but it seems like you guys have a lot more of the metaphysical side than what we get over here.
I think we try to embrace a broader spectrum of ideas, both spiritual and scientific. We don't necessarily adhere to a particular spiritual path, shall we say, that I think can sometimes get in the way with some groups over here as well. And I think, but it's probably to a lesser degree here than in America. I think that's probably, for me, the single biggest difference that I would put my finger on as being noticeable. But beyond that, there's not a vast amount of difference at all, really. I don't feel anyway. I don't know what obviously you guys think.
Well, my opinion is that over here it's just a lot of the teams nowadays, and I'm one of the newer teams. Don't get me wrong, and I've made my share of mistakes when I was first starting out. But I got hooked up with some very good people that would take the time to teach me. But most of the style of investigating over here is as seen on TV.
I think that's probably one of the things that would probably make, in a funny way, an even more interesting discussion would be the groups that existed before it became a TV thing and the groups that have come into existence since it's become a major TV thing. Certainly the first couple of groups I was heavily involved in were both pre-TV, and their approach and attitude were very different. I mean, the first group I was heavily involved with, shall we say, was a group called EarthQuest that didn't differentiate between ghosts, supernatural, and UFOs and other phenomena. It investigated with keen interest all odd phenomena. It didn't divide them one to the other. That, I think, is probably one of the biggest changes, although groups like the Ghost Club have been around for sort of centuries, well over a century, and the ASAP began a long time ago as well. But again, ASAP, they tend to approach both subjects, or all subjects, both UFOs, ghosts, aliens, monsters. They're interested in all of them. There weren't that many groups who were specifically purely only looking into ghosts. The second group I was involved in just prior to the launch of Most Haunted had more of a focus on the supernatural, but we did do things like occasional sky watches and went to other locations that had other sort of possible involvement of a more sort of occult nature, shall we say. So again, it was more of a spread across the different areas, but most groups that have popped up since Most Haunted, I always say it frequented teeth, as you might have noticed, they have been predominantly and almost wholly dedicated to the supernatural ghost phenomena rather than a more of a broader sense. And I think that's probably the biggest change. Now, obviously, I don't know what it was like pre-TV in America for that kind of investigation. What would be your sort of experience of that sort of thing, Jay?
I think Jay would know that one more, but I would. But I was sitting there doing a little Google search right now, and about 3 different pages I found real quick. I just put in Ohio paranormal teams, and the lowest number on one of them was 108 that had teams registered just in the state of Ohio, and the one with the highest was over 400 some different teams.
Good Lord.
And the middle one was about 330. So right there alone, you're looking at almost 1,000 teams on 3 different websites registered in the state of Ohio with 3 different organizations. In just the state of Ohio alone.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, Ohio, from my knowledge, is not the most vastly populated state in America either, is it? So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's just the state of Ohio, and then you have 50 states, and you got, but Ohio is very active. Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Pennsylvania have more claims of paranormal activity than a lot of the other states combined for some reason.
Well, I can understand perhaps probably because in terms of Western European occupation, we've been there longest. The sort of a period of time that we've been. I mean, obviously, we always talk about the old Native American sort of burial sites and those kind of spiritual sites know to have activity. But in terms of Western influence of modern Europeans living there, obviously they've been the longest in those areas. When you get to the really northeast coast of America, they've been there a good few centuries. So I suppose that's probably one of the reasons why you find more groups. But I mean, when I first got involved in this, well, the very first group, EarthQuest, was pre-internet, so we didn't have any other groups around at all. But even then, in the late 1990s, the very early 2000, when the internet was obviously up and running by that point, not as big as it is now, there was probably no more than a dozen groups in the whole of the UK that were running at the same time. Literally, probably no more than 10, I would have said, and that includes the Ghost Club and ASAP and other sort of groups along those lines. There were very, very few. It wasn't a big business or industry at all. But that TV program made all the difference. That's what changed everything, I think.
Well, you touched on something there that I'm gonna call Kerry out on for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You there, my friend?
Yes.
No. Your answer is no. Not every single place in the United States has an Indian burial ground. No. but
Are you
that
sure?
does seem. It does seem, and I never noticed until you pointed it out to me that it seems like over here, every time you hear somebody talk about anything paranormal, it's like, well, there's an Indian burial ground close by. You know, since it was indigenous people and that they didn't keep a record, I imagine there's a burial ground all across every continent. I imagine all over Europe there's burial grounds that we don't know about, that we dug through or built over, something like that. I mean, there was tribes over there. There was the Celts and the I'd have to think about all of them. You know, you got the Slavic people and all that, and Germanian. So I imagine there's burial grounds across every continent, but this seems like the go-to here in the United States. Oh, there's an Indian burial ground. No, they're not everywhere. They are not. Everybody doesn't have one in their backyard, I promise.
No, but in the UK we have things called plague pits, and that gets bandied about a little bit. You know, oh, there was a plague pit there. You know, so we kind of have the same thing, but not to the extent that it doesn't get bandied about to the extent that you guys sort of seem to. And we're going to put the seem to in there, the secret Native American burial grounds. And, you know, this is something I've looked into just a teeny bit. And a lot of the traditions are actually not buried anyway. Plague pit, that was. David,
okay. I'm glad you clarified.
He's like, play pit? What's a play pit? No,
I was going to clarify. Is that like Chuck E. Cheese's?
A plague pit has very different connotations to a plague pit.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I imagine that. But then you get the whole other thing of it too that Mr. Mercer is absolutely adamant about, and that's the whole with this side of the pond is it's either an Indian burial ground or it's the D word. Mm-hmm. And I mean, everybody cries demon at every little thing. If somebody gets their hair pulled, it's a demon. Oh, get over yourselves.
I think it's because it gets TV viewers, doesn't it? That's the problem. I mean, we had a discussion with someone whose name I shall not mention a little while ago, and he did make the one point that, you know, unfortunately, it is true that both sides of the pond, primarily our understanding of each side's way of dealing with the paranormal is the TV programs that are on screen. Mm-hmm. And that does, unfortunately, give a very awful impression that we tend to have lots of mediums running around making all sorts of strange claims, which we don't. And you guys do seem to be constantly chasing nothing but demons, and I hope you don't. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, again, you're the guy to sort of fill us in on that one. But that's the perception, I think, on either side of the proverbial pond, that there is a greater reference and propensity towards a particular form of supernatural entity that you tend to get there more than you get here. But it is creeping over here. I have to say I was not the most impressed when I saw Most Haunted Chains and introduced their own quotation marks demonologist into the show. And it was very, very obviously designed to appeal to the American audience. The individual whose name I shan't mention is a clueless idiot, and I'll go on record and say that. Because if you visit his website, he clearly hasn't got a clue what he's talking about. He can sit in the program and spiel all sorts of stuff off, but doesn't really know what he's talking about. And it's quite unfortunate that they chose this particular person, because I mean, maybe later on, maybe more recently now, he's done a lot more homework and a lot more research. But certainly when he first started to appear on the program, his website was a comedy show. It was literally the most cheesy, flame-throwing, monstrous things on the screen with bulging eyes and revolving skulls. It's like, what on earth is this? Again, it appeals to a certain audience, and that's the audience who tend to watch the programs. Now, I find it a real problem because the TV coming into the world of the paranormal has done a lot of good in some respects, no doubt about it. It's almost made it more acceptable. We're seen as slightly less kooky weird than we used to be, and more people admit they're interested in this kind of thing and go and explore. Also, if you're involved in professional companies, then the number of people wanting to come on events went through the roof, literally. I mean, I was involved in the early days of a company called Fright Nights when the TV stuff first exploded. In fact, the guy who used to run Fright Nights helped set the most ordered up in the first place. And he noticed he was the first company of its kind, and dozens of them popped up. But yet there was still, all the events were sold out. People wanted to come along. And it had the double-edged effect, because on the one hand it made it much more popular, much more people interested in it, but on the other side of that you also had a lot of unreal expectations of what you would experience on an investigation. And I think to some degree the American TV shows are even in some ways even worse, because you have less actual airtime. You have more adverts every 10 minutes or so, I think, in most American TV shows. So it's even more squashed into a very short period of time. Even an hour-long show would only run for sort of 30, 35 minutes if you take all the adverts out. So you get even more of this compressed effect of creating unreal expectation of what you would experience on a quotation marks ghost hunt. So it's definitely a double-edged sword. And I think almost like one or two have been chasing after each other. Most Haunted set the tone, I think, for all modern ghost hunting programs, because it was new, it was different. Up until then, all you really had were people sitting around, literally on a TV, or someone sitting in an armchair reading a story from a book, or somebody would retelling their experience, and you have sort of actors acting out the scenes as they were being described. Most Haunted was the first time on public TV, readily available TV. There were some shows that were on video only, but the first public sort of TV show where you actively went out on an actual ghost hunt. That really did change the whole genre, changed expectations, changed ideas, and changed experiences for people, what they thought it was about and what they thought they were going to experience. So that was a huge change. And I think, not surprising, America caught up with their own TV programs, and now you've got dozens of them. We've still really only got the one here that's been a long-running success. There's been a few others have popped up and disappeared, but America has had a number of shows which have continued to run. So it clearly is, although it's a well-furrowed field, it's still obviously a very popular one.
I completely agree with that. I really do agree with that, and I do think they have their place. TV shows. That's how I got into the paranormal, watching a television show, and then thought, I'd like to have a go and get out and see what it's all about and have that thrill for myself. And I've said this before, that was mostly because I used to watch Most Haunted, and then I quickly learned that it wasn't like that, and it set off a train of thought that basically you start asking why. So why do you do things in that way, and why do things happen? And that's where you then take it to the next level and start learning and, start wanting to do it. And I think very quickly it cuts the wheat from the chaff, as we say over here in the UK. You know what I mean? You get more serious and you get more knowledgeable, and then you start researching for yourself and it pushes you forward. Or you just like a ghost hunt and go out ghost hunting. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're looking for the latter, then the TV programs and public events are ideal. You're not going to get serious scientific research on a TV program, or are you going to get it on a ghost hunt with the general public involved? Because it is a thrill thing. It's thrill seeking. It's fun. It's adventure. It's scared, but in a safe-ish way, because people seem to think horrible things have happened, but they just don't. So, it needs to be considered what it is, as they always put at the end of these programs, and there was specific legal reasons why that happened about it being an entertainment program. I won't go into all the details now, but they were legally forced to put that this program as entertainment purposes only, because there were some problems. But That's the key. You know, all these shows, I mean, I don't know the details of all the American shows, of course. I mean, I was briefly on Taps once, many, many years ago, and they seemed like a nice bunch of guys, but you did get the feeling that it felt very staged, as in there was not a script as such, but a kind of director's script, if you like. So you do this, do that now, and for this reason, that reason. Now, I'm not saying that they fake stuff. That's not what I'm saying at all here, but by the nature of a TV program, it's got a director, and if it's got a director, they're telling you what to do and when to do things. So it's never particularly realistic. So in terms of what people tend to do on investigations, even small private team investigations, I still think it's by and large informed by what they've seen on TV, which, again, it's not going to give you sort of acceptable, genuine scientific results. So you might give you to your own satisfaction, and this is the thing I always often bang about. Forget trying to sort of prove anything to anybody. If you can prove it to yourself, that's all that matters. If you're happy and satisfied that you found your own evidence, that you've discovered something that suggests there is some reality to the paranormal, then that's great. But only people who want to believe you are going to believe you, and those who don't want to believe you won't believe you no matter what. So. But again, it's still, I think, for both sides of the pond, we are still, to a large degree, informed about how we're supposed to do these things based on what we see on the TV programs.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, one thing I would like to say is what you see on the TV is for entertainment, exactly as you just said. But a lot of those people on the TV are also very serious about the paranormal investigation when they're not on the TV, and they have very valid experience and techniques that don't translate into the programs that we see on the TV.
Yes.
I would like to point that out too.
I would also like to point out very quietly and privately, because I have worked with at least 3 mediums who have appeared on Most Haunted, and all 3 of them are under contract, even after finishing the program, so keep their gob shut as to what happened on the show. But one of them was as close as he could to actually telling us exactly what went on, and it wasn't good. That's all I can say. It really wasn't very good. So the problem, I think, comes when you have the old the greenbacks, as the Americans like to call them, the money starts to be little gold coins as we have these days. Once they get involved, then you'll do whatever you're told, because you want to get that penny in your pocket. The chances of earning any kind of living out of the paranormal comes in one of 2 forms. If you run a company that does public investigations, and that increasingly is a difficult thing to do because the locations are so expensive and there's so many companies, it's hard to get them booked full all the time. But also, I could be off my thread there. Sorry. Totally off my thread. The other way is to get into a TV program. And I've seen people who I would, again, I'm not going to go names or details, but a particular person who I would have considered a few years ago to a very serious, dedicated researcher looking for real information and good, solid evidence, is now involved in a TV program which I think is a little bit dubious, and has hooked up with somebody who I think is very dubious. But I'm not going to say any more about it than that. So, but it worries me that even someone who I consider to have been a serious investigator, has been around for many years, has then taken the penny and is hooking himself up with less than 100% legitimate projects, I think, is the best way I'm going to put it, without getting any sort of hinders of who or what I'm actually talking about. So it is a problem. I think that's something that both sides of the pond have to deal with. There's a certain degree of sincerity and earnest investigating might go a little bit out the window when it comes down to the old TV camera rolling in your face. I know that, again, from conversation with the guys I met them briefly, that the TAPS people have a very large degree of control, at least certainly when I spoke to them. Now, this is going back a few years, but back in those days, when it was both the 2 founding guys still in it, I know one guy's dropped out, but they had a lot of editorial control over both how it happened and what appeared on TV on screen. But there have been very strong accusations occasionally of them faking things, so I don't know. They seem very genuine and honest to me, but I don't know the ins and outs of it. But that's, I think, is the problem, that the credibility is prepared to be sacrificed sometimes for the sake of a few pence in your pocket. And I know these companies do actually pay quite well. So the lure is there. I understand that. So, I mean, I know we're supposed to be talking about the differences between the US and the UK investigating. Well, it's for both sides to say, by and large, all we've got to go on really is what we see on TV. So that can be a limiter.
Dave?
Jay?
Dave?
Dave?
Anybody? Why does this always happen when I come on? There's always a stunned silence when I stop talking. I think, so I just keep talking?
I know. I think Dave had something to say about one of our topics a while back.
Yes, he did.
Dave?
There was a question, wasn't there?
I'm here, I think. I don't know. It's 26 minutes into the show. I get to talk. Hey.
Join us.
Well, I wanted to start at the first point. Back. Hold on a second. I had someone just open the door and cat again. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
I hope it was just the cat. Nobody else opened the door.
Say, was it paranormal? Ooh.
There's paranormal, then there's cat normal.
There's definitely cat normal. Okay. Anyways, the whole reason I closed my door is so I wouldn't disturb my wife, and she just came through and opened the door, and of course the cats are driving me nuts too. Anyways, I started paranormal investigating in 2008 when I met my wife, but she had been doing it for about 15 or 18 years previous to that. And it was a completely different world because it was kind of hush-hush taboo. It wasn't something you would really talk to people about openly in a public forum or even a party setting. It would be more of a private one-on-one. It's like, hey, I understand you're having some sort of problem. I'm a paranormal investigator. Looking around, checking, make sure no one else is here to listen, and that kind of attitude is very, very, very quiet. And people would be embarrassed to know that to say that they had a paranormal investigator look at their house because people take pride in their homes, they pride in their lives, and it's a point of pride when you can't solve a problem that's happening in your own home, and that's still. That part, doesn't go away. That's still today with people who are dealing with hauntings that are scared and so forth. But the big difference today is most of the people requesting. Well, investigators are a dime a dozen to find. The question is whether you get a good one or not. You either have the serious type, or you have the I want to find me a demon, and. We have a lot of those people, and it's unfortunate that the show, one of the backsplash of the shows being on TV is that it's brought these people who think that finding demons would be cool, and what they don't realize if they actually did encounter one, they would not be loving life very much. So, just blows my mind this attitude certain people have about these things. It's not trivial, and. There's a large number of people of that. Now we have, in America, we're physically a much larger country, so we have per capita mile more idiots, and that's unfortunate because that means we have a higher percentage of idiots in the paranormal field. That said, there are some good people, some level-headed people, and some people who are, like what I like to say is. Open-minded skeptics. In other words, they're willing to accept new information, process it, and look at it and evaluate it, but they're also skeptical of the information coming in to try to ensure that the information they're perceiving is not being perceived incorrectly and being associated with something that it isn't. And now I've created silence.
That actually sounds very similar to how it is in the UK. We have a lot of serious people, but we also have the people that just like going out and having a ghost hunt. Do you know what I mean? So that on that point, there's not, apart from the amount of them, because we have less because we're smaller as a country, that's not really any different. I think you're going to get that in any country that's got paranormal investigations. So on that point, there's not really a lot of difference, is there?
No, interestingly, so that a friend of mine pointed out a little while ago, who's not English, it is predominantly an English-speaking country phenomena, ghost hunting. There are not that many groups in mainland Europe. Italy seems to be the only one that has even anything like a comparable number of teams per head of population, if you like. Places like Germany and France, it's not that popular at all, and it's really surprising. You think, why is it such an English language-speaking people's hobby? You get a lot of in Australia. You get a few in sort of places like Canada and New Zealand, but it doesn't tend to be that popular in non-English speaking countries. Now, that is really an odd one, and I can only again think it's to do with the TV programs, because they are...
I can answer that.
Go on.
It's because all spirits speak English.
Oh, well, that would probably explain it.
Sorry.
I don't know about you.
I just had to throw that out there.
My spirits speak American, okay?
And I notice every time you do that, you sound like you're trying to mock me. No, what? Well, you saying I got an accent or something? I thought you were supposed to be on my side here, bub. So we had two questions in the chat. One of them was in the Facebook Live feed, and it was asking about David Akora. I don't even know who he is. Whether he's actually an investigator,
Derek,
or whether he's more of an actor. Yeah, Derek. Or whether you think he's more of an actor.
Okay, Derek Akora is a medium that worked on Most Haunted in the early series, and he was famed for being taken over by spirit. Now, in the early days of his career, he was a well-received and had a good reputation as a medium, but his reputation has been damaged throughout the time. Now, I can't comment on his mediumship skills. I've never had a reading by him, and I can only go on what I've seen and rumours that I've heard. And I just think it's one of those cases that Andy was talking about earlier, where fame and money kind of affected things.
Pushed him in places that he normally wouldn't have gone.
And pressure as well. I mean, he was let go from the television series because he was found out by a parapsychologist to be allegedly faking. And he's actually in a series at the moment that's running on TV, and he's also been called out for a few things on there recently. And I just think it's one of those fame and fortune kind of situations with him personally. But as I say, I can only speak on what I'm reading in, the media and what I've heard from rumour mongers. So it's all alleged. I can't comment personally because I don't know him. I've never had a reading by him. So I can't comment whether or not he's fake or whether or not he's not very good or an actor. But that's my take on Derek Akora, is that it's,
I don't know who he is.
I can probably fill in a few more blanks there as well when it comes to Derek. First thing I would say is he deserves a lot of credit for being the first medium who was prepared to work with paranormal investigating teams, ghost investigators. It was very much something that you just did not see before Derek became involved in Most Haunted. It wasn't going to be a feature of the program either. That was again suggested by a third party who knew Derek, had done some stuff. And I said there has been a video series that was out, a short run, that only came out as videos, it wasn't on TV or anything, that involved Derek and another medium with a ghost investigating team visiting a few locations. And it was from that recordings that it was suggested that Derek do the show. I have met him once. I went along to one of the early live Most Haunted shows, which is at Woodchester Mansion, which I know intimately, and he was there. And we briefly had a chance to just more or less sit alone. That was about it, because he was the only one who really spent time with the audience, because it was a fairly small audience, and no more 40, 50 people in one of the rooms with the live show. The rest of the crew would go off into corners and discuss what they're doing next. And Derek would actually come and sort of say hello to people in the audience, which was really nice. You're the only one that did that. So I have time for the guy because he did put himself out there. He did what he could. But there was no doubt there was a concerted effort towards the end of his tenure in Most Haunted to basically rubbish him and his reputation. It wasn't just enough that they wanted to get him off the show because they thought he'd become bigger than Most Haunted. What Yvette Fielding didn't seem to understand was, no, it was her and Derek together, their chemistry, that made it work. And that's something they have never recaptured. Now, I do see it primarily as an entertainment show. I'm not saying he's an outright fake, but I do know a couple of instances that have been highlighted that certainly suggest he may have been privy to information that he was supposedly shouldn't have had. I've also heard from other people, again, who've been involved peripherally in the show, that some of the stuff he came out with wasn't known and later proved to be the case, as in information about the location. So, again, early 2000s, you're talking about the birth of the internet, so it was possible to find this information, but not as easy as it is today. So, again, I have time for the guy. I spoke to him twice with the old radio show. I used to be involved in the KTPF Individual on 2 occasions, and on both occasions he was very forthcoming, very open with us. It was a small audience, we weren't paying him anything, but he was on with well over an hour on both occasions. The first one, he wasn't that long after ending with Most Haunted, and he was quite bitter about the whole situation, and he was quite vocal. He was careful not to say anything libelous, but he was quite vocal about how he felt he'd been treated, and it was pretty bad, I have to say. But there's a prime example of where they were sabotaging him with possibly with fake information, but certainly something was very, very strange. He did, one of the last shows he did was a live show investigating Jack the Ripper, which is something that you guys know I know quite a bit about as well. Mm-hmm. They were at a supposed unknown location, which I know was actually an old brewery, which was on Hanbury Street, the site of the second murder. He, in a seance, came up with 2 names, and they were both completely ludicrous. One was known to be a complete fake, and the other one had been was just made up, and the other one was known to again have been a suggested identity, but have been absolutely wholeheartedly proven to be fake. It was both of them were completely false. Now, anybody who knew anything about the Ripper would have known those names were absolute nonsense. One was made up a long time ago, one was made up fairly recently, but so whoever had done the research that was given to Derek, or whoever it was spiritually communicating with Derek, was feeding very, very poor information. One of them, one of the 2 names was made up years ago, was pretty obscure. You'd have to have known about the Ripper story quite well to have even heard the name before. So that was really strange. And I thought, no, you've been fed information and they've given you absolute rubbish, probably deliberately to make you look like an idiot. So I was kind of thinking, well, I don't know what to make of this now. This guy, I like him, I have respect for the guy, but I find it hard to respect his entire career faking. It's possible, it's entirely possible. But, the other thing that one of the reasons why we're being mentioned now is Derek's currently on a program called Big Brother, which is this celebrity version, which you may have heard of in America. I don't know if you've got it in America, but people go into this house and you can watch them 24/7, do whatever they're doing. They're under scrutiny for weeks for the public, private individuals, and there's about a 2 weeks version with celebrities in it, and the celebrity version's on at the moment. Derek's in the house, and already some rather outlandish things are apparently coming out for the program. I've not seen it, but there's a few strange things coming out about he's claiming to have seen the ghosts of contestants in the past who've died, not in the house, didn't die in the house, but who have since passed away. So I don't know, but I do know it pays vast sums apparently. Now, there was another person who was on a radio show this afternoon who was approached about being on the program but turned it down. And when they asked him, what kind of money they're offering, he wouldn't go into any detail, but other than to say he could probably bought a couple of houses out of it. So it's a lot of money people are being paid to be on the celebrity program. So it's almost like Derek's taking a chance. Is he going to destroy his reputation any further by appearing on this program? Because there have been people in the past who have destroyed their reputation by being on this program. Yeah. But I think Derek's one of those people that if you believe he's a genuine, powerful, concise medium, doesn't matter what fakery you might show that person, they're going to continue to believe in him. And those who think he's a fraud will always think he's a fraud no matter what. So it's almost like the paranormal itself. People's opinions of mediums are the same when it comes to the paranormal, if you believe in it or you don't. And if someone from the other side of the argument tries to convince you, you're not going to believe them unless it fits with what you already think. And I think Derek is also part of that phenomena, shall we say. So it's actually a question for Dr. Dave and Joan Teresa. Do American shows, because I must admit I don't watch them, do many of them use mediums? Do they play a particular part in the investigation programs that you guys have out there, or indeed generally investigating? Do mediums play much of a part?
Dave?
Well, I haven't watched any paranormal programs in quite a while. I stopped watching somewhere along the lines of 2007, 2008, when I found out that, in my opinion, that Derek Encore was a fraud because of what he did during a Most Haunted Live investigation, where he, I actually have a clip here I'd like to share with you guys real quick of this. This is the well-known Mary Loves Dead.
That's things about him. Who are you?
Right.
Right. Just for a moment, that energy
came in and there's annoyance. A nice lady, but I feel as if she's got this great love for Dick.
Right.
For Dick.
Okay.
Great love. Covers him up. Covers him up.
Are they related or?
Yes.
They're related?
Yes.
Right.
She covered him up. She helped him.
How do you mean covered him up?
How did she cover him up, Sam? She protected him.
Right.
With who? The only two that protected him were herself, Mary and Betty. Mary and Betty. Okay. They knew. The only two ladies that knew. This secret place. And we used to help him and feed Sam Betty.
Right.
Yeah, and parcels.
This is very, very interesting. You're giving a lot of information over here, and I'm hearing through my earpiece that our historians are going completely bonkers. So, I mean, has Derek come up with the right information?
I'm going to cut that down because it kind of goes on for a little bit. But the big thing about this clip is, as soon as they divert the TV away for a second, they think they're off camera, but the live TV comes back to them, and they all just start break out laughing, saying "Mary loves Dick," because it was all made up.
Yes.
And that they started a trend, if it wasn't already happening in American paranormal investigation, because they were caught ghost hunters in a live event a year or two later, doing something with tugging on a coat with a fish wire, invisible line, and so this is paranormal investigations or paranormal shows, I should say. Originally, from my perspective, I thought they were pretty straightforward and legitimate. But as it turned out, I don't know if it was during these live shows and then forward or the whole time that they were all just complete, for entertainment purposes only.
Mm.
And
I think that's
the big problem. Now, as far as mediums go, we've had Paranormal State. I think was one of the ones I had watched a couple episodes with. It had medium Chip Coffey in it.
Michelle Bellinger
also.
Also.
Yep. And so, their mediums have been used in the shows and as well as on investigators. I mean, my wife's a medium.
So what you guys are telling me is that the stuff I see on TV, I can't make a trap and catch a ghost and then blow it up?
I think that's unlikely. Yeah.
that happened on one of the shows over here. One of the shows, the team is based off trying to build traps to catch a ghost.
You talking about that large devil's trap that they climbed into?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that when they
it's a
went
box.
to
the box with mirrors that supposedly is going to trap a spirit in. And this is the thing that gets me is you're going to trap a spirit in it, but you're going to climb in it and be bait. Do you think if you could trap a spirit, do you think it might be a little pissed?
Well, yes. I'd also wonder how on earth they expect us to get in and stay in there because they're a bunch of mirrors.
Yeah.
That program is just beyond belief. It's like, we've seen the film Ghostbusters, guys. You don't have to keep remaking it every week and try to claim you're going to cross the beams and crash the ghost. It's just beyond belief how ludicrous it is. I mean, if these entities exist at all, I think they can pretty much pass through any solid matter, no matter what it might be. So it doesn't matter what you try and rig up. There's no possible way you're going to stop these entities, energies, spirits, whatever you want to call them, coming and going as they damn well please. Why do you think this strange gizmo that you've made up is going to make any difference whatsoever? It is utterly beyond me, but they obviously believe it does somehow.
And so I'm not going to make a dream catcher. It's going to get tangled up like a spider web.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
I was going to say there's also no evidence to show that any kind of energy field would be able to contain or even move a spirit. Because we can't, and it really comes back down to this: is we don't know the nature of a ghost or spirit, or what we don't even know what it is. We don't know what it is. We don't know how to properly detect it, or more importantly, we don't know how to identify it. How do we tell one from another? The only thing we've been going around doing is holding EMF detectors, going, well, the meter's moving, but what does that tell you? What does that mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't really mean much because there's 20 million other things it could be.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing I often say. I mean, I have been quite genuinely involved in this stuff for almost 30 years now, and the only conclusion I've reached is weird stuff happens. I usually put a different word in there, but weird stuff happens. There's no doubt about it, but it's incredibly rare. I mean, I often occasionally do a talk with audio and video of things I've captured over the years. I've probably got about 20 examples, mainly on audio, some on video, but they are from, and I don't know, so I'm not exaggerating, for nearly 30 years of involvement, certainly since 20 years with equipment, shall we say. And I've got about 20. So that's averaging of one a year. And I used to be out doing this sort of things almost every weekend. I mean, for a while when I was working with Fright Night, it was every weekend. And I was recording the events as well as being a part of them. But the vast majority of phenomena that you experience, you can easily explain. And often, if you point out the obvious explanation, people say, no, don't accept that. No, it was this. Belief plays such a huge part in this. And, you know, I've been on investigation events where I can categorically say to you, nothing has happened. But these people go away believing they've had an amazing experience, but nothing's occurred. But it'll be the slightest thing, the slightest noise or movement of body. You know, your body moves a lot on its own anyway. Your muscles can spasm slightly occasionally. And when you're out and about on your average day, you don't even notice these things. You know, a slight breeze or your clothing tugs your hair. You would ignore it. 99% of the time, you totally ignore it. But you put someone in a supposedly haunted location in the middle of the night, half asleep because they're tired, or maybe sort of hyper on coffee or whatever else. Hopefully not illegal, you know, things like these drinks you can make, energy drinks, and you know the slightest spasm in their body or the sort of the hair gets caught on the coat, and then whoa, it's a ghost! Oh, God, I've been grabbed. You know that plays such a huge part in a lot of this. But yeah. We don't know what we're dealing with. We really don't. I mean, there are lots of nice, interesting theories. Some of them are obviously religious-based, and I think one of the questions earlier on was how much does religion play a part? And it is something that we can probably talk about briefly, as we've not got a vast amount of time left. But certainly, we don't know what we're dealing with. Strange stuff happens. I've seen enough of it for myself to know strange stuff definitely happens that doesn't fit the normal explanations. But we don't know what on earth it is. So to try and claim that somehow kind of energy-fueled box machines with light-emitting diodes and wires and power going through and all that kind of gizmo is going to make the slightest bit of difference, I don't know. But it makes good TV. It is. It's Ghostbusters Weekly. So, you know, you can understand. You can't even put the real Ghostbusters because there was a cartoon series called The Real Ghostbusters. So the real Ghostbusters, the real unreal Ghostbusters, shall we say. So it's a strange one, and I watched a bit of it once, but found it so infuriating. I thought, this is just too silly for words. I'd rather watch Scooby-Doo. It's more believable. So.
Okay, so we have had another question in our Facebook live feed. Do we all use the same equipment in the field? I think we do, don't we? We all use K2s and REM pods and voice recorders, and I don't think there's anything specifically equipment-wise that UK versus America and the UK use differently in my knowledge. Do you use anything different? The only thing we do, like we've touched on this at the beginning of the show, the only thing we do probably do a little bit different is the more metaphysical side. We do tend to use a little bit more metaphysical, but you said earlier that you're starting to do that in America too.
I think it's more used in America than what that gets attention to it. Like Dave's wife is very talented, very gifted lady and stuff, and I think there's a lot more of it happening. It's just not played out on mainstream TV as much. It's happening on the backsides and the back scene. I think there's, in my opinion, there's a shift in the paranormal where people are starting to open up their minds and stop being so stringent, metaphysical or scientific. There is a middle ground and starting to work a little bit. I see it happening more people working in the middle there.
I'm interested to know, actually, Kerry, what do you mean by metaphysical?
Well, things like Ouija boards, crystals, mediumship, all those sort of...
Okay, the Victorian parlour stuff.
Sort of thing. Yeah, more that.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Andy, you're supposed to be on her side.
I am, but he is. I have no problem. Trust me, I have no problem with the Victorian parlour form of investigating. I've got sick to death of equipment-based investigating because you spend out. I mean, I used to run a group myself about 10 years ago. I'll close it down. But we got to the point, and I'm not exaggerating, we'd spend more time setting the bloody equipment up than actually carrying out the investigation. We'd run out of time. You know, we had cameras wired up, we had sort of sound detectors, temperature detectors. We used to try ITC experiments with the camera facing a TV that was out untuned, all that kind of stuff. And it was just, oh my God, it's like, this is boring. You set all this stuff up and get really fed up with it. So I've gone back to the idea of, take a crystal ball along, get them to get the group to gaze into the ball and see what happens. I love that kind of stuff. To me, that's more fun. I'm being completely honest, guys. I've given up the notion of ever trying to prove anything to anybody with this field. I really have. And I think much of the time when you're trying to, you are flogging a dead horse, because he does come back to that same old saying that comes back from the American guy, Edgar Cayce. He was very much right. For those who believe, no proof is necessary. For those who are skeptical or don't believe, no proof is ever enough. And I think that is the position that we're in, really. We're not going to. This is an internal discussion that we have with ourselves. Those interested in the ghosts, those are not. It don't matter to them. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You guys know my wife filmed what I think is the best example of a paranormal event I've ever seen or picked up. My wife recorded it. It was recorded by accident. It wasn't deliberately done. It was something that she was just filming down a dark corridor at the Edinburgh Vaults for about 10-15 minutes. Got a bit spooked. She didn't like to be in the dark on her own, using infrared. So she turned the camera off and joined the rest of us. When I watched the footage back afterwards, and I probably have put the link up before, but I can do again, you can see without a shadow of a doubt there is a shadow of a person in the rear room that she's filming down. It gets up and moves across and disappears out of view. And just to the side of her, there is a sudden darkening of a corridor entrance, and there's nobody anywhere near that. Now, that is proof. As far for me, that's enough that this is real. I've tried to recreate it. I've been back to the site. We've tried to recreate the footage ourselves. I've had a professional cameraman look at it and said he can't explain why there's a shadow when there's a single infrared light. There should be a person in front to create the shadow, and there's no one there. That's not technically possible. That's what they've said to me. For me, this is proof that this stuff is real. What it is, I don't know, but this is real. But my wife's like, yeah, no, I filmed that. It's great. Yeah, you make sure you tell everyone I filmed it. But she come on ghost hunts now. Not interested. She's not interested. She's the one that's filmed this footage, and she's like, "Nah, I can't be bothered. It's boring. Sitting in the cold, in the dark. Some weird stuff happens." I goes, "Yeah, okay, I believe you." And he does. That's it. So people outside of our kind of community are like, if they're interested, they're already involved. If they're not, they're never going to be. Obviously younger people come into it, come in fresh, but people don't tend to, unless they have a dramatic experience of their own, don't tend to suddenly become interested they weren't previously. So I think that's one of the problems we often face, and I completely forgot what I was talking about. The own thread. Metaphysical, and yes, and the changes. Yeah, no, it is nice to see that kind of approach being embraced, because it does have its place. Because it is, at the end of the day, it's that kind of experience you're looking for. It's nice having sort of stuff you can show people and listen to on audio, etc. But you want that personal experience, and I think that's probably the most important thing, is because it's demonstrating it to you yourself what you're experiencing.
One thing I do want to address is, I heard this earlier today, does America have a paranormal investigation season? I heard that it tends to be just between January and September, and then all the locations shut down.
Well, it's only because of Halloween. A lot of the bigger locations shut down to do haunted attractions, because they make a boatload of money for that. They make a boatload of money. I mean, people spend $15, $20, $30 to walk through this building and have people jump out at them.
Oh, so it's more to do with that than for any other reason. Because we do it all year round. We haven't got a season, as it were.
Well, it tends to go a bit quieter in the height of summer because it's so few hours of darkness. It tends to be a more kind of autumn, winter, come spring experience. At least I can say that.
Y'all don't investigate during the day over there? I mean, spirits are active daytime as much as they are at night.
Oh, no, but that's part of the I'm talking about investigation companies here, the events companies. They tend to not bother during the summer months because there's so few hours of darkness. It's one of those kind of prerequisites you expect to be looking for ghosts in the dark. And you make a very valid point there, Joe. I know we're running out of time here, but a lot of the more unusual experiences tend to happen both, one, in the daytime, but you dismiss it because it's the daytime, and two, when you're not expecting it. And it could be just sort of at the start of an evening, even if it's not got dark yet. But certainly from, again, the companies I've worked with, most of them don't bother having events in the height of summer because no one books them. More people usually go on holiday, that kind of thing. It tends to be that this sort of thing, And interestingly enough, when I was dealing with the wider scope of strange activity beyond just the ghosts, it always seemed to pick up in the autumn. A lot of the kind of psychic phenomena, if you like, the kind of the weirder stuff, always seemed to begin to happen. And it is a cliche, I know, but towards October. It used to be that time of year. Now, whether it's because for thousands of years, at least hundreds of years, we've regarded that particular time as being important. I mean, it does go back to ancient Greek. That kind of time, the autumn time of the sort of darker stuff begins to happen. It's been fixed as of October 31st for not that long ago, but it's been, again, still been there for a couple of hundred years. But maybe that's why it's in the mind, in the collective psyche, if you like, of us.
There's a couple reasons why that could be. One, which is none of these ghosts or spirits we think are grandma that passed away, but really the unconscious manifestations of our own psyches. Or the other possibility is that the sun is slightly further away from the earth during these times, during the winter time. So there's less sunlight hitting the earth and hitting the charged particles of the ionosphere, and that energy field around the planet has less energy in it. So
actually, Dave, I'm going to blow your ears off. In our northern hemisphere winter, the earth is physically closer to the sun. It's actually closer. That's why southern hemisphere summers are much hotter, because when the sun is the higher in the sky in the south, we're actually physically closer. In the height of summer here in the northern hemisphere, and this is true for America and the UK, we're furthest from the sun. That's why southern hemisphere heat is so much hotter. There you go. Sorry for ruining your theory there.
That's okay. Well, anyhow, so there you go.
But with less daylight can make a difference. There's certainly that possibility because you have fewer hours of exposure to the sun.
Yeah, I mean, because I think of it a lot. Also, the witching hours that were 3 a.m. That a lot of people have talked about. You know, what is the reason why paranormal activity seems to occur more closer to that time than, say, right before sunrise or right after sunset? Maybe it has something to do with the ionosphere and the charged particles of the ionosphere, where the E and F layers dissolve basically at night when the sun's no longer hitting the outer atmosphere.
Well, one of the things, actually, we did a little survey with the investigation and events companies, was trying to work out which time of night was the most active on events, and it tended to be around 2 a.m. And one of the things we noticed was 2 a.m. was the only time, no matter when in the year's cycle, it was dark. You know, in the height of summer, it was getting light by about 20 past 2 here.
We're out of time, guys. I'm sorry, we are out of time.
So it was always dark at 2 a.m.
Thank you all for being here. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Goodbye.
Excellent fun.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.